Maya Carter walked through the sliding doors of the mess hall with her lunch tray balanced in one hand. The large room buzzed with strange sounds, clicks, hums, and growls mixed with normal human voices. She had been on the horizon's edge for 3 weeks now, and she still wasn't used to eating lunch surrounded by aliens. The ship was huge, almost like a floating city in space. It held the first-ever joint training program between humans and 12 other alien species. Maya was one of only 15 humans on board. The rest of the crew, nearly 200 beings, came from worlds she had only read about in books. She spotted her usual table near the large window that showed the stars outside. But something was wrong. Someone was sitting in her seat. The creature was massive. He stood at least 7 feet tall even while sitting down. His body was covered in thick scales that shimmered between dark green and red. 2 yellow eyes, cold and sharp like a snake's, tracked her movement across the room. His name was Vrekthor, and he was from a species called the Kryn. Maya had studied the Kryn during her preparation for this mission. They were warriors, proud and aggressive. Their whole society was built on being stronger than everyone else. They respected power and nothing else. On their home world, the weak served the strong. It was their way. She walked toward the table slowly. Other aliens in the mess hall noticed and stopped eating. A small insect-like being named Clicktar looked up from his food, his large eyes widening. 2 blue-skinned Centauri officers paused their conversation. Even the human trainees at the far table went quiet. Everyone knew what this was. A challenge. Maya reached the table and set her tray down on the empty spot across from Vrekthor. She looked directly into his yellow eyes. "Excuse me," she said calmly. "You're sitting in my seat." Vrekthor's mouth opened, showing rows of sharp teeth. A small device on his belt crackled to life. It was a translator, converting his hissing growls into words everyone could understand. "This seat belongs to the strong now, human. Your kind are soft, weak. You have no place among warriors." He stretched out even more, his thick arms spreading across the back of the bench. His scales shifted to a brighter red color, a sign of aggression that Maya recognized from her studies. The mess hall had gone completely silent now. At least 50 pairs of eyes watched them. Some aliens looked curious. Others seemed nervous. A few looked almost eager, like they were waiting for a fight. Maya took a slow breath. She had expected something like this. The Kryn had been testing boundaries since the program started. They pushed other species around, took their equipment, interrupted their training. Vrekthor was the worst of them all. He seemed to enjoy making others uncomfortable. "I'm asking nicely," Maya said. Her voice was steady and clear. "Please move." Vrekthor laughed. The sound came out like rocks grinding together. His translator turned it into mocking human laughter. "Make me, little human." Maya set down her tray completely. She rolled her shoulders once, a habit from years of training. Then she moved. What happened next took less than 3 seconds, but everyone in the mess hall would remember it for the rest of their lives. Maya stepped to the side of the table. Her hand shot out and grabbed Vrekthor's wrist in a specific way, her thumb pressing into a nerve cluster she had memorized from Kryn anatomy charts. His hand went numb instantly. Before he could react, she pivoted her body and used his own weight against him. Vrekthor was big and strong, but Maya understood leverage. She understood anatomy. She had spent months studying every species on this ship, learning their weak points, their nerve centers, the places where size didn't matter. The huge alien crashed to the floor with a thunderous bang. His back hit the metal deck and all the air rushed out of his lungs in a surprised whoosh. He lay there, staring up at the ceiling, his yellow eyes wide with shock. Maya calmly walked around him, pulled out the chair he had been sitting in, and sat down. She picked up her fork and began eating her lunch as if nothing had happened. The mess hall erupted. Aliens jumped to their feet. Some rushed toward the table, others backed away. Kliktar made a high-pitched chirping sound that his translator couldn't process. The Centauri officers looked at each other in disbelief. Frektor slowly pushed himself up to his hands and knees. He was breathing hard, his scales flickering between red and a confused purple color. He looked at Maya with an expression that might have been rage or respect or both. Jake Morrison, another human instructor, appeared at Maya's side. He looked worried. "Maya, what did you just do?" She swallowed a bite of her food and shrugged. "I asked for my seat back. He refused. So I took it." "You just threw a Kryn commander on his back in front of everyone." "He put himself on his back. I just helped him get there faster." Vrekthor finally stood up. He towered over the table, his chest heaving. Other Kryn warriors moved toward him, but he held up a hand to stop them. He stared at Maya for a long moment, and she met his gaze without flinching. Then he turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the silent mess hall. Maya continued eating. Around her, aliens slowly returned to their meals, but the whispers had already started. Within minutes, the story would spread through the entire ship. Within hours, it would reach the commanding officers. Jake sat down across from her, shaking his head. "You know this isn't over, right? The Kryn don't forget this kind of thing." "I know," Maya said. "He's going to come after you. They take challenges seriously." "I'm counting on it." Jake blinked. "What?" Maya looked up from her food. "Someone needed to stand up to him. He's been bullying everyone on this ship for weeks. Kliktar told me Frektor pushed him out of his seat last week. Nobody did anything because everyone's too worried about causing an incident." "And you're not worried?" "Of course I'm worried, but I'm also tired of watching him push people around." She took another bite. "Besides, I knew exactly what I was doing. That throw was designed for Kryn physiology. I studied their nerve clusters, their balance points, their muscle structure. I didn't hurt him, I just surprised him." "You did more than surprise him. You humiliated him in front of everyone." Maya nodded slowly. "Yeah, I did. And now we'll see what he does about it." Jake leaned back in his chair, looking at his friend with a mixture of admiration and concern. He had known Maya for 3 years. They had trained together, studied together, and volunteered for this program together. He knew she was smart, skilled, and determined, but sometimes her confidence worried him. "You have a plan, don't you?" he asked. "Always," Maya said. Across the mess hall, the Kryn warriors were gathered in a tight group, their scales flashing angry red. Vrektor stood in the center, and though Maya couldn't hear what they were saying, she could guess. The translator devices on their belts flickered as they spoke rapidly in their own language. Kliktar approached Maya's table carefully, his 6 legs moving in a nervous pattern. "Lieutenant Carter," he said through his translator, his voice coming out as soft chirps. "Thank you for what you did. He has been cruel to many of us." Maya smiled at the small alien. "No one should be bullied, Kliktar. Not here. We're supposed to be learning to work together." "The Kryn do not think that way. They believe in strength above all." "Then maybe it's time they learned that strength comes in different forms." The doors to the mess hall opened again, and Captain Lisa Monroe entered with 2 security officers. She looked around the room, her eyes quickly finding Maya. "Here we go," Maya thought. She set down her fork and stood up as the captain approached. Captain Lisa Monroe stood in front of Maya with her arms crossed. The security officers waited behind her, their faces neutral but alert. The entire mess hall watched in silence. "Lieutenant Carter," the captain said. Her voice was calm but firm. "Come with me, please." Maya nodded and followed the captain out of the mess hall. Jake started to stand, but Monroe waved him back down. This was between her and Maya. They walked through the quiet corridors of the ship. The walls hummed with the sound of the engines, a constant reminder that they were floating in the vast emptiness of space. After a few minutes, they reached the captain's office. Inside, two other people were already waiting. One was Ambassador Thoris, a tall Kryn with silver scales that marked him as an elder. The other was a Centauri observer named Kelvin, who represented the neutral council that oversaw the training program. Maya stood at attention while Captain Monroe took her seat behind the desk. "Lieutenant Carter," Ambassador Thoris said, his translator turning his growls into precise words. "You have committed an act of violence against Commander Rekthor. This is unacceptable. We demand that you be removed from the program immediately and sent back to Earth in disgrace." Maya kept her face blank, but inside her heart was racing. Being sent home would end her career. More than that, it would make humans look weak, unable to handle the pressures of working with other species. Captain Monroe held up a hand. "Ambassador, let's hear what Lieutenant Carter has to say first." "There is nothing to say. Everyone saw what happened." "Everyone saw the end of what happened," the captain corrected. "I want to know how it started." Maya took a breath and began to speak. "I entered the mess hall at 1300 hours, as I do every day. I went to my usual table and found Commander Rekthor sitting in my assigned seat. I asked him politely to move. He refused, and made it clear that he was challenging me." "And your response was to attack him?" Ambassador Thoris asked. "My response was to answer his challenge in a way he would understand," Maya said. "The Kryn respect strength. He was testing me to see if I would back down. If I had, he would have seen it as proof that humans are weak. He would have continued to bully not just me, but other humans and other species he considers inferior." Kelvin, the Centauri observer, leaned forward. His blue skin seemed to glow slightly in the office lights. "You studied Kryn culture before coming here?" "Yes, sir. I studied all 12 species represented on this ship. Their cultures, their languages, their biology. I wanted to be prepared." "Why did you study their biology?" Ambassador Thoris demanded. Maya met his gaze directly. "Because I'm a xenobiology specialist, Ambassador. It's my job to understand how different species function. And because I wanted to know how to defend myself if necessary, without causing permanent harm." Captain Monroe tapped something on her desk screen. "I've been reviewing your file, Lieutenant. You have advanced degrees in xenobiology and comparative anatomy. You also hold black belts in 4 different martial arts, is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am. Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, and Aikido." "Why so many?" "Because each one teaches different principles. Judo teaches me to use an opponent's weight against them. Jiu-Jitsu teaches leverage and joint manipulation. Krav Maga teaches efficiency in targeting weak points. Aikido teaches me to redirect force rather than meet it head-on." She paused. "All of these principles work regardless of whether my opponent is human or alien." Kelvin looked interested now. "You applied these principles when dealing with Commander Rekthor?" "Yes, sir. I identified a specific nerve cluster in his wrist that corresponds roughly to the human radial nerve. Applying pressure there caused temporary numbness. Then I used his forward momentum and his higher center of gravity against him. The throw I used is called osotogari in judo. It's designed to work against larger, heavier opponents." Ambassador Thoris's scales shifted to a darker color. "You planned this. You studied our anatomy to find our weaknesses." "I studied your anatomy to understand your strengths and weaknesses, yes. Just as I'm sure Kryn warriors study the species they might face in combat. Knowledge is not the same as intent, Ambassador. I didn't plan to fight Commander Rekthor, but I was prepared for the possibility." The room went quiet. Captain Monroe looked at the two observers, then back at Maya. "Ambassador Thoris, I need to ask you something. Has Commander Rekthor been involved in any other incidents since arriving on this ship?" The Kryn ambassador hesitated. What kind of incidents? Intimidation. Aggressive behavior toward other species. Before Thoris could answer, the door chimed. Captain Monroe pressed a button, and the door slid open. Click-Tar stood there, his insect body trembling slightly. "I am sorry to interrupt," his translator said, "but I heard that Lieutenant Carter was in trouble. I wanted to speak on her behalf." "Come in, Click-Tar," the captain said. The small alien entered the room, his 6 legs clicking on the floor. He looked tiny next to Ambassador Thoris. "Commander Rekthor pushed me from my seat 1 week ago," Click-Tar said. "He said that insects should eat on the floor, not at tables with warriors. I did not report it because I did not want to cause problems." Ambassador Thoris's scales flickered with what might have been embarrassment. Captain Monroe's expression hardened. "Were there witnesses?" "Yes. 3 other trainees saw it happen. They will confirm my story if you ask them." Over the next hour, the truth came out. 2 Centauri officers reported that Rekthor had taken their training equipment without permission. A human trainee named Kevin said the Kryn commander had deliberately bumped into him hard enough to knock him down. None of them had reported the incidents because they were afraid of making the diplomatic situation worse. Ambassador Thoris looked troubled as the evidence piled up. "I was not aware of this behavior. Commander Rekthor will answer for his actions." "The question now," Kelvin said, "is what to do about Lieutenant Carter's response." Captain Monroe leaned back in her chair. "From where I'm sitting, Lieutenant Carter responded to a direct challenge with appropriate force. She didn't injure Commander Rekthor. She didn't escalate the situation beyond what was necessary. She simply made it clear that humans will not be bullied. She humiliated one of our senior warriors," Ambassador Thoris said, but his voice had lost some of its anger. "With respect, Ambassador, he humiliated himself by challenging someone and losing," Maya said. "In Kryn culture, isn't that how hierarchy is established, through combat and challenges?" Thoris stared at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he made a sound that the translator interpreted as a laugh. "You truly did study our ways, Lieutenant. Yes, that is correct. Among Kryn, challenges are how we determine rank and respect. Commander Rekthor issued a challenge. You accepted and won. By our laws, that is not a crime. That is simply the way of things." Kelvin nodded slowly. "However, we cannot have trainees fighting in the mess hall. That sets a dangerous precedent." "I agree," Captain Monroe said. "From now on, any challenges between species must be conducted in the training arena, under supervision, with proper safety protocols. And there will be mandatory sessions on respectful interaction between species. We're here to learn to work together, not to establish dominance." "What about Lieutenant Carter?" Ambassador Thoris asked. The captain looked at Maya. "No punishment. She acted in self-defense and showed remarkable restraint. However, Lieutenant, I expect you to attend those mandatory sessions along with everyone else." "Yes, ma'am," Maya said. "You're dismissed." Maya saluted and turned to leave. As she reached the door, Ambassador Thoris spoke again. "Lieutenant Carter." She turned back. "Yes, Ambassador?" "Commander Rekthor is a proud warrior. This defeat will burn in his mind. He will not let it stand." "I know," Maya said. "Our laws allow him to demand an honor duel, a formal combat in the arena. He will almost certainly invoke this right." Maya nodded slowly. "Will he fight to kill?" "No. Our laws forbid killing in honor duels, but he will fight to prove his dominance, to restore his reputation." The ambassador's scales shifted to an orange color that Maya didn't recognize. "Be careful, Lieutenant. You surprised him once. He will not allow that to happen again." "I understand, Ambassador. Thank you for the warning." Maya left the office and walked back through the corridors. Her hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was wearing off. She had been confident in the captain's office, but Thoris's warning worried her. Jake was waiting for her outside her quarters. "Well, what happened?" "No punishment. But Thoris thinks Rekthor is going to challenge me to a formal duel." Jake's face went pale. "Maya, those duels are serious. I've read about them. The Kryn don't hold back. Neither will I. He's twice your size and covered in armor-like scales. How are you going to beat him in a fair fight?" Maya smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Who said anything about fair? I'm going to use every advantage I have. My speed, my knowledge of his anatomy, my training. And I'm going to teach him that humans are tougher than they look." "You're crazy," Jake said, but he was smiling now too. "You know that, right?" "Probably. But someone has to show these aliens that humanity belongs here." She entered her quarters and immediately pulled up her computer. She had files on Kryn physiology, detailed anatomical charts that she had studied for months. Now she needed to go deeper. She needed to find every weakness, every vulnerable point, every technique that might give her an edge. Because Ambassador Thoris was right. Rekthor would come for her, and when he did, she needed to be ready. The message came 3 days later. Rekthor had formally invoked his right to an honor duel. The date was set for the following week, giving both fighters time to prepare. The training arena was the largest open space on the ship. It could be configured for different types of combat, with adjustable gravity, various terrain options, and energy shields to protect spectators. For this duel, it would be set to standard Earth gravity with a flat, open floor. Maya spent every free moment training. She ran scenarios in her head, practiced techniques against holographic projections, and studied Kryn fighting styles. Jake helped her, acting as a sparring partner even though he knew he couldn't match Rekthor's strength or aggression. "Remember, he'll try to end it fast," Jake said during one practice session. They were both breathing hard, covered in sweat. "Kryn favor overwhelming force. He'll charge you, try to get you in close where his strength advantage matters." "Then I won't let him get close," Maya said. She moved through a series of strikes, each one aimed at the vulnerable points she had memorized. Neural cluster behind the knee, pressure point below the rib cage, eye ridge, throat. "What if he gets hold of you?" "Then I use joint locks and leverage. His shoulders have the same basic structure as ours, just bigger, same with his elbows and knees. If I can hyperextend any of those, he'll have to let go or risk permanent damage." Jake shook his head. "You make it sound so simple." "It's not simple. It's just physics and anatomy. Every body has weak points. I just need to find them fast enough." The day of the duel arrived. Maya woke early and went through her morning routine with mechanical precision. She ate a light breakfast, stretched for 30 minutes, and reviewed her notes one final time. Then she put on her training uniform and headed to the arena. The corridors were unusually crowded. It seemed like everyone on the ship wanted to watch this fight. Aliens from all 12 species were making their way to the arena, talking in excited voices. Some looked worried, others looked eager. Jake met her outside the arena entrance. "You ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "The whole ship is here, Maya. This is bigger than just you and Rekthor now." She nodded. She knew that. Word had spread beyond the horizon's edge. The Galactic Council was paying attention. Several species were watching to see if humans could really hold their own against a warrior race like the Kryn. If she lost badly, it would set back human relations by years. If she won, it would prove that humanity belonged among the stars. No pressure, she thought grimly. They entered the arena together. The space was huge, easily 100 meters across. Tiered seating rose up on all sides, already packed with spectators. The noise was incredible, a mix of voices, clicks, hums, and sounds Maya had no name for. Captain Monroe was there, standing with Ambassador Thoris and Kelvin in a special observation area. Kliktar sat in the front row with several other smaller species. The human contingent occupied one entire section, their faces tense with worry. And in the center of the arena, waiting, was Rekthor. He looked even larger in the open space. His scales gleamed under the bright lights, deep red with streaks of black. He wore no armor, as per the rules, but his natural scales provided plenty of protection. His yellow eyes locked onto Maya as she approached. An arbiter, a neutral Centauri official, stood between them. He raised his voice, and the translator system broadcast his words throughout the arena. This is an honor duel between Commander Vrekthor of the Kryn Empire and Lieutenant Maya Carter of Earth. The rules are as follows: non-lethal combat only. The duel ends when one fighter yields or is rendered unable to continue. No weapons. Natural species advantages are permitted. Do both fighters understand? I understand, Maya said. Vrekthor growled something in his own language. His translator converted it to, I understand and accept these terms. Then take your positions. Maya and Vrekthor walked to opposite sides of a circle marked on the floor. The arena fell silent. Even the translator devices seemed to quiet down. Maya could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. The arbiter raised his hand. Begin. Vrekthor charged immediately. He covered the distance between them in seconds, his massive body moving with surprising speed. His strategy was obvious: overwhelm her with brute force before she could use her mobility. Maya didn't retreat. Instead, she moved forward and to the side, changing her angle. As Vrekthor's clawed hand swept toward her, she ducked under it and struck at his leading knee. Her fist hit the neural cluster she had memorized, and his leg buckled slightly. Not enough to drop him, but enough to slow him down. He spun, faster than she expected, and his other hand caught her shoulder. His grip was like iron. He lifted her off her feet, and for a moment, Maya felt real fear. If he slammed her into the ground with his full strength, the duel would be over. But she had trained for this. She grabbed his wrist with both hands, found the pressure point she needed, and dug her thumb in hard. His grip loosened just enough. She twisted her body, used the momentum to break free, and rolled away. The crowd roared. Different species made different sounds of approval or concern. Maya got back to her feet, her shoulder aching but functional. Vrekthor came at her again, but this time he was more careful. He moved in with measured strikes, testing her defense. Maya blocked and redirected, using Aikido principles to guide his attacks away from her body. You are skilled, human, Vrekthor said, his voice carrying across the arena. But skill is not enough against Kryn's strength. Then I guess I'll need more than skill, Maya replied. She feinted left, then dropped low and swept at his legs. He jumped back, but she had expected that. As he landed, she was already moving, striking at his solar plexus, then his throat, then his eye ridge. Each strike was precise, aimed at vulnerable spots. Vrekthor staggered back. His scales flickered between red and purple. He was getting angry now, which was dangerous. Angry fighters made mistakes, but they also hit harder. He charged again, but this time Maya was ready. She sidestepped and used his momentum to throw him, a classic judo technique. He crashed to the ground, but rolled and came up immediately. You use my own force against me, he said. There was something in his voice now. Respect? Curiosity? You're strong, Maya said, circling him. But strength without control is just momentum, and momentum can be redirected. She realized something as she spoke. This wasn't just a fight anymore. It was a lesson. Everyone in the arena was watching, learning. She could win by simply defeating Vrekthor, or she could win by showing them something more important. She could show them how humans think. The next time Vrekthor attacked, Maya didn't just defend. She called out what she was doing. Redirecting your right cross, using your weight against your balance point. Vrekthor stumbled. Targeting the nerve cluster behind your elbow, temporary paralysis of the lower arm. His left arm went limp for a few seconds. Hyperextending your knee joint. Not enough to damage, just enough to limit mobility. He dropped to one knee. The crowd was silent now, hanging on every word. Maya wasn't just fighting. She was teaching. She was demonstrating that human strength wasn't in muscles or scales or claws. It was in knowledge, in adaptability, in the ability to analyze and overcome. Rekthor pushed himself up, breathing hard. His scales were a confused mix of colors. "You mock me." "No," Maya said firmly. "I respect you. You're a powerful warrior, but I'm showing everyone here that there are different kinds of power. You rely on strength. I rely on understanding. Both are valid. Both have value." He stared at her for a long moment. Then he charged one final time, putting everything he had into the attack. Maya saw it coming. She could dodge, wear him down, wait for him to exhaust himself. That would be the smart move. Instead, she met his charge head-on. She caught his wrists, let him push her back, then dropped her weight and twisted. It was a move called Tomoe Nag, a sacrifice throw where you use your opponent's momentum and your own falling motion to send them flying. Rekthor went up and over, his massive body rotating through the air. He landed hard on his back. Before he could recover, Maya was there, her knee on his chest, her hand on his throat in a position that could easily crush his windpipe if she applied pressure. "Yield," she said quietly. Rekthor could have kept fighting. His arms were free. He could have thrown her off. But something had changed in his eyes. The anger was gone, replaced by something else. "Why do you not finish it?" he asked. "Because this was never about finishing you. It was about earning your respect." She stood up and stepped back, offering her hand. It was a human gesture, but she had learned that the Kryn had something similar. A warrior offering assistance to an equal. Rekthor stared at her extended hand. The entire arena held its breath. This moment would define everything that came after. If he rejected her hand, the conflict would continue. If he accepted it, everything would change. Slowly, Rekthor reached up and grasped her forearm in the traditional Kryn warrior's grip. Maya helped pull him to his feet. He towered over her, his scales shifting to a deep blue color that she hadn't seen before. "You have proven yourself, Maya Carter of Earth," he said, his voice formal. "You fight with honor and wisdom. The Kryn acknowledge your strength." The arena erupted. The noise was deafening. Aliens of every species were on their feet, making their sounds of approval. The human section was cheering so loudly that Maya could pick out individual voices. Ambassador Thoris stood in his observation area, his scales showing a silver blue that meant profound respect. Captain Monroe was smiling, actually smiling, something Maya had rarely seen. Maya and Rekthor stood in the center of the arena, still gripping each other's arms. They were no longer enemies. They were warriors who had tested each other and found respect in the outcome. The arena duel changed everything. Within hours, Maya found herself surrounded by aliens who wanted to talk to her. Kliktar approached first, his translator chirping excitedly. "Lieutenant Carter, you were magnificent. I have never seen anyone defeat a Kryn warrior before." Maya smiled at the small insect. "I got lucky. Rekthor is a skilled fighter. If he had been more cautious, the outcome might have been different." "But you showed us that size and strength are not everything," Kliktar said. "My people are small. We are often dismissed by larger species. But you proved that knowledge and technique can overcome raw power. That gives us hope." Other aliens came forward with similar sentiments. 2 Centauri officers thanked her for standing up to bullying behavior. A fuzzy creature from a species called the Therax asked if she would teach them defensive techniques. Even some of the Kryn approached her, their scales showing colors of respect. But the biggest surprise came 3 days after the duel. Maya was in the training room working through her morning exercises when Rekthor entered. She tensed automatically, old habits from the fight still fresh in her muscles. "Peace, Lieutenant Carter," he said through his translator. "I come to ask a favor, not to challenge you again." What kind of favor? I wish to learn from you. His scales shifted to an orange color that Maya had learned indicated humility. You defeated me through knowledge and skill. This troubles me. The Kryn have always relied on our natural advantages, our size, our strength, our scales. But you showed me that these advantages can be overcome by someone who understands anatomy and leverage. Maya set down her water bottle. You want me to teach you? Yes, not just me. Other Kryn warriors as well. We wish to understand human combat techniques, how you redirect force, how you target weak points, how you turn our own strength against us. This was unexpected. Maya had assumed Rekthor would avoid her after his defeat. Instead, he was asking to train with her. I'll teach you, she said, but on one condition. Name it. You teach me about Kryn combat methods. I want to understand your fighting style, your philosophy, your approach to warfare. We learn from each other. Rekthor's scales brightened to a pleased yellow. This is acceptable. You think like a warrior, Maya Carter. You understand that there is always more to learn. They began training together the next day. At first, other species watched nervously, worried that the sessions would lead to another fight, but it quickly became clear that something different was happening. Maya taught Rekthor about leverage points, about how to break grips, about pressure points that worked across different species. Rekthor taught Maya about Kryn battle tactics, about their pack hunting strategies, about how they used their natural weapons in combination with their strength. Jake watched one session with obvious amazement. A week ago, you two were trying to beat each other unconscious. Now you're training partners? He respects strength, Maya said, breathing hard after a sparring round. I proved I was strong. Now we can work together. It's weird. It's practical. He knows things I don't. I know things he doesn't. Why wouldn't we share that knowledge? More aliens began joining their training sessions. The Centauri officers wanted to learn defensive techniques. Kliktar and his people asked about ways to use their small size as an advantage. Even some humans joined, eager to learn from both Maya and Rekthor. Captain Monroe observed one session and nodded approvingly. Afterward, she called Maya to her office. You've done something remarkable, Lieutenant. You've turned what could have been a diplomatic disaster into an opportunity for cooperation. I just wanted my lunch seat back, ma'am, Maya said with a slight smile. Monroe laughed. Yes, well, that lunch seat incident has become quite famous. I've received communications from the Galactic Council. The Kryn have withdrawn their motion to classify humans as a protected species. Maya's eyes widened. They were trying to classify us as what? Protected species. It would have meant second-class citizenship status, restricted access to certain sectors, limitations on military and exploration roles. The Kryn argued that humans were too fragile and inexperienced to operate independently in galactic space. But they changed their minds? More than that. They're now sponsoring our application for full military partnership status. Ambassador Thoris sent a formal statement saying that humans have proven themselves capable warriors and valuable allies. Monroe leaned back in her chair. Your actions in that arena changed the trajectory of human-alien relations. Maya felt the weight of that statement. What had started as a simple confrontation over a seat had become something much larger. But not everyone was happy with these changes. Maya first noticed the problems during a training exercise. Her team's communication system failed at a critical moment, causing confusion and delays. Equipment that had been working fine suddenly malfunctioned. Small things, but enough to make her team look disorganized and incompetent. At first, she thought it was just bad luck, but when it happened 3 times in 1 week, she started to suspect something else. She was discussing her concerns with Rekthor during a break between training sessions when he nodded slowly. I have noticed similar issues. During our last joint exercise, the Kryn team's weapon systems were mysteriously locked out. It cost us valuable time. Someone is sabotaging the exercises, Maya said. But why and who? They both knew the answer, but it was Clicktar who confirmed it. The small insect appeared in the doorway, his body language agitated. Lieutenant Carter, Commander Vrekthor, I must speak with you. It is urgent. What's wrong, Clicktar? Maya asked. I overheard something. I was in the ventilation shaft, which is where my people often travel because the corridors are so large for us. There was a conversation in one of the diplomatic offices. 2 Vortons were talking. The Vortons were a telepathic species known for their political manipulation. They held significant influence in the Galactic Council and had grown rich through carefully controlling information and creating dependencies. What did they say? Vrekthor asked. They spoke about the human and Kryn alliance. They called it dangerous. One said that if humans and Kryn begin working together, it will upset the existing power structure. The other agreed and said they had implemented measures to make both species appear incompetent during evaluations. Maya felt anger rising in her chest. They're sabotaging us to make us look bad. There is more, Clicktar continued. They mentioned that other species are beginning to question Vortan authority. If humans succeed here, if they prove that new species can quickly adapt and contribute, it will encourage others to challenge the established order. The Vortons benefit from keeping things as they are. Vrekthor's scales flashed angry red. This is dishonorable. They fight with shadows and deception instead of facing us openly. That's exactly why they're doing it, Maya said. They know they can't beat us in direct confrontation, so they're undermining us indirectly. What can we do? Clicktar asked. Maya thought for a moment, her mind working through the problem. We need evidence, solid proof that they're interfering with the exercises. Once we have that, we can bring it to Captain Monroe and the neutral observers. How do we get this evidence? Vrekthor asked. By being smarter than they are. Maya pulled up her datapad. Clicktar, can you and your people monitor the ventilation shafts? Watch the Vortan diplomatic offices? Record what you hear? Yes. But is this not also sneaking and deception? It's intelligence gathering, Maya said. There's a difference between collecting information about an enemy's plans and actively sabotaging someone's equipment. We're not breaking anything or hurting anyone, we're just finding out the truth. Clicktar's translator made a clicking sound of agreement. I will help. My people will help. The Vortons have dismissed us as insignificant for too long. Vrekthor, we need to document every malfunction, every strange occurrence during training exercises. Timestamps, witness statements, everything. If we can establish a pattern, it will be harder for them to deny. The Kryn warrior nodded. I will speak with other warriors. They will help gather this information. Over the next week, they worked carefully and quietly. Clicktar's people proved invaluable, their small size allowing them to move through the ship unnoticed. They recorded conversations, noted suspicious activities, and documented Vortan movements. Maya and Vrekthor cataloged every equipment failure, every mysterious malfunction. They cross-referenced the timing with Vortan access to different ship systems. The pattern became clear. Every major problem coincided with Vortan personnel having access to the relevant systems. Jake helped analyze the data, his background in computer systems proving useful. This is good work, but we need something more concrete. We need to catch them in the act. Then we'll set a trap, Maya said. They planned it carefully. The next major training exercise would involve all teams working together on a complex rescue scenario. Maya's team would be in a critical position, and everyone expected more sabotage. But this time, Clicktar and his people would be watching. They would monitor every access point, every system terminal, every place where someone could interfere with the equipment. The day of the exercise arrived. Maya briefed her team, which now included Kryn, Centauri, humans, and even some Vortans who weren't involved in the sabotage. She didn't tell them about the trap, didn't want to risk anyone accidentally revealing the plan. The exercise began, and sure enough, problems started immediately. Communication failures, equipment malfunctions, systems going offline at critical moments. But Clicktar and his people were ready. They saw everything. The training simulation was chaos from the start. Maya's team was supposed to rescue civilians from a damaged space station while dealing with system failures and hostile forces. But within minutes, everything began going wrong in ways that seemed impossible. Their communication systems scrambled, mixing up voice channels. Weapons targeting locked onto friendly forces instead of enemies. Environmental suits reported false oxygen readings. Door codes changed randomly, trapping team members in sealed sections. Maya watched it all happen and felt a strange sense of calm. This wasn't random bad luck. This was someone actively working against them. And somewhere, Clicktar and his people were watching. "Team, switch to hand signals," she called out before the communications died completely. She had prepared her people for this. They had trained for the possibility that their technology would fail. Frekthor understood immediately. He began using Kryn military gestures, which Maya had learned during their training sessions. The other Kryn warriors fell into formation around him. When weapons targeting failed, Maya directed her team to use their natural abilities instead. The Kryn had their strength and claws. The humans had their adaptability and problem-solving skills. Clicktar's people used their size to access maintenance tunnels and manually override locked doors. The simulation was supposed to take 30 minutes. Maya's team completed it in 25, despite facing 3 times the obstacles any other team encountered. As they finished, Jake approached Maya with his data pad, a grim smile on his face. "We got them." Clicktar's people recorded everything. 2 Vortan technicians accessing secure terminals, inputting override codes, deliberately corrupting the exercise systems. "Get that data to Captain Monroe immediately," Maya said. Within an hour, every team leader was called to an emergency meeting in the main conference room. Captain Monroe stood at the head of the table, her expression severe. Ambassador Thoris was there, along with Kelvin and other observers from the Neutral Council. And at the far end, looking uncomfortable, was Ambassador Silith of the Vortan Collective. "We have a serious problem," Monroe began. "Evidence has come to light that someone has been deliberately sabotaging training exercises." Silith's telepathic abilities couldn't help him here. The evidence was concrete. Video recordings, system logs, timestamp correlations. His people had been caught. "This is clearly a misunderstanding," Silith said smoothly. "My technicians were performing routine maintenance." "Routine maintenance that coincidentally corrupted critical systems during live exercises?" Kelvin asked. His blue skin had darkened with anger. "Maintenance that specifically targeted human and Kryn teams?" "We have recordings," Maya said quietly. She activated a holographic display. Clicktar's video showed 2 Vortan technicians talking openly about their sabotage while they worked, confident that no one would notice them. The room went silent as everyone watched. The Vortans discussed their plans, laughed about the problems they were causing, and openly stated that they were following orders from Silith to undermine the human-Kryn alliance. When the recording ended, Silith's expression was one of barely controlled rage. He had been outplayed, caught completely by surprise. "This is a violation of the exchange program protocols," Ambassador Thoris said, his scales flashing aggressive red. "You have acted dishonorably, Silith. The Kryn Empire demands accountability." "The Centauri Coalition agrees," Kelvin added. "This behavior is unacceptable and will be reported to the Galactic Council." Silith stood abruptly. "The Vortan Collective will not tolerate these accusations. We have influence throughout the galaxy. We could make things very difficult for all of you." "Is that a threat?" Captain Monroe asked, her voice cold. "It is a statement of reality." Maya spoke up then, her voice clear and calm. "Ambassador Silith, can I ask you something? Why did you do this? What did you hope to gain? Silith turned his attention to her, his telepathic senses probably trying to read her emotions. You wouldn't understand, human. The Galactic Order has existed for thousands of years. There are rules, hierarchies, systems in place. Your species arrives and immediately begins disrupting everything. You and the Kryn working together? That was never supposed to happen. It threatens the established power structure. You mean it threatens your power, Rekthor said. Our influence has kept the galaxy stable. We maintain balance through careful management of information and relationships. What you call manipulation, we call governance. Maya shook her head. You call it whatever you want. We call it cheating. And more importantly, it won't work. You can't hold back change by sabotaging training exercises. Species will continue to grow, learn, and form new alliances whether you like it or not. She is right, Ambassador Thoris said. The Kryn were wrong to judge humans as weak. They proved themselves worthy. Now they teach us new ways of thinking about combat and cooperation. This is valuable, not threatening. Captain Monroe stood. Ambassador Silith, you have two choices. You can leave the exchange program voluntarily and answer to the Galactic Council for your actions, or we can formally expel you and your people, which will be noted in all official records. Silith's face twisted with anger, but he was trapped. The evidence was clear, and his threats had no weight here. Finally, he nodded stiffly. The Vortan Collective withdraws from this program. We will see you all at the council hearing. He turned and left, his technicians following quickly behind. The room relaxed slightly once he was gone. Kelvin looked around at the assembled group. This situation has revealed something important. The old ways of organizing galactic society are not working. Species have been kept in rigid hierarchies based on age and power, but that system stifles cooperation and innovation. What do you propose? Captain Monroe asked. A new protocol, named after this ship where these changes began. The Horizon Protocol would establish new guidelines for interspecies cooperation. Instead of hierarchies based on dominance, we would encourage partnerships based on complementary strengths. Ambassador Thoris nodded slowly. The Kryn would support this. We have learned much from working with humans. They are weak in body, but strong in mind. We are strong in body, but can learn to be stronger in mind. Together, we are more than either species alone. Over the next few days, the Horizon Protocol took shape. It was drafted by representatives from multiple species, with Maya and Rekthor contributing based on their experiences. The document emphasized mutual respect, collaborative learning, and the value of diverse perspectives. When the protocol was presented to the Galactic Council, it caused heated debate. Some species, particularly those who benefited from the existing power structure, argued against it, but others, especially smaller or newer species, supported it enthusiastically. The Vortan Collective tried to block the protocol, but their recent sabotage had damaged their credibility. After 3 days of deliberation, the Council voted to adopt the Horizon Protocol as official policy for all joint programs and diplomatic missions. The news reached the ship during a celebration in the mess hall. Maya was sitting at her usual table, surrounded by friends from multiple species. Rekthor sat across from her, his scales showing a contented blue color. You started all of this over a chair, Jake said, shaking his head in amazement. One lunch seat, and you changed galactic politics. I didn't change anything, Maya said. I just showed people that humans won't back down from bullies. Everything else followed from that. Clicktar chirped happily. You showed all of us that we could stand up for ourselves, that size and age and traditional power don't matter as much as courage and skill. Rekthor raised his drink, a Kryn beverage that looked disturbingly like motor oil. To Maya Carter, who took my breath and my chair and gave me something more valuable in return: respect and friendship. The others raised their drinks as well, each in their own cultural style. Maya felt a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the food or drink. This was what she had hoped for when she volunteered for the program. Not to prove humans were better than anyone else, but to prove they belonged here, among the stars, working alongside other species. Captain Monroe approached the table and everyone stood at attention. She waved them back down. At ease. I'm not here officially. I just wanted to say something. She looked at Maya. Lieutenant Carter, you've received a commendation from the Galactic Council. It's extremely rare for such a junior officer to be recognized at that level. Congratulations. Thank you, ma'am. More importantly, you've been asked to help design the training curriculum for the next exchange program. They want human perspectives on cooperation and adaptability included in all future sessions. Maya's eyes widened. That's a huge responsibility. You've earned it, and you won't be working alone. Commander Rekthor has also been assigned to the curriculum development team. The Kryn warrior's scales brightened with pride. It will be an honor to work with Lieutenant Carter again. Monroe smiled. I thought you might say that. You two have become quite the team. She paused. The exchange program is being extended by 6 months. During that time, you'll be training the next group of participants and helping them understand what cooperation really means. After the captain left, Maya sat back down, feeling overwhelmed. 6 months ago, she had been a relatively unknown instructor. Now she was helping shape how species interacted throughout the galaxy. Are you okay? Jake asked. Just thinking about how strange life is. I joined this program because I wanted to see if humans could make a difference out here. I never expected it would start with someone taking my lunch seat. Frekthor laughed, the sound rumbling through his chest. Sometimes the greatest battles begin with the smallest conflicts. You could have walked away, chosen a different seat, avoided confrontation, but you stood your ground. That showed me who humans really are. Who are we? Maya asked, genuinely curious about his perspective. Survivors, adapters, warriors who fight with knowledge as much as strength. When we first met, I thought humans were weak because you lacked our physical advantages. I was wrong. You are strong in ways I did not understand. You survive by learning, by adapting, by using everything around you as a tool. Kliktar added his own thoughts. My people have been part of the galactic community for centuries, but we have always been dismissed as insignificant. Watching you stand up to Rekthor gave us courage. Now we speak up in council meetings. We contribute ideas instead of just following others. You showed us that respect must be earned, not given based on size or tradition. Maya looked around the table at her friends. A human, a Kryn warrior, an insectoid, a Centauri officer. They came from different worlds, different cultures, different evolutionary paths, but they had learned to work together, to respect each other's strengths and compensate for each other's weaknesses. This was the future of galactic civilization. Not domination by the strongest or manipulation by the most cunning, but cooperation between equals who recognized each other's value. To the Horizon Protocol, Maya said, raising her glass. To the Horizon Protocol, the others echoed. As they drank, Maya looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, on countless worlds, other species were watching and learning. The story of the human who took back her lunch seat had spread far beyond this ship. It had become a symbol of something larger, the idea that anyone, regardless of size or strength or status, could stand up and make a difference. And it had all started because Maya Carter was tired of being bullied and decided to do something about it. The mess hall continued its celebration late into the night, filled with the sounds of multiple species enjoying each other's company. In the morning, they would return to training, to learning, to building a better future together. But for now, they simply enjoyed the moment. Maya stayed at her table long after the others had left, looking out at the stars and thinking about the journey ahead. There would be challenges, setbacks, species that resisted change. But humans had proven they belonged here. They had earned their place not through conquest or submission, but through competence, courage, and the willingness to extend friendship even to former enemies. She thought about Rektor, who had challenged her in anger and become her closest ally. She thought about Kliktar, who had found courage through her example. She thought about all the species learning to work together, breaking down old hierarchies and building new partnerships. And she thought about that lunch seat, the most important chair she had ever fought for, because it led to all of this. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Training new groups, developing curriculum, teaching the principles of cooperation to species who had spent millennia competing. It would be difficult, frustrating at times, and require patience she wasn't sure she had. But Maya Carter had never backed down from a challenge. She had proven that when Rektor took her seat, and she would prove it again, every day, until cooperation and mutual respect became the norm throughout the galaxy. The stars continued their eternal dance beyond the viewport, indifferent to the small dramas playing out on the ships that traveled between them. But those dramas mattered. They mattered to the beings who lived them, learned from them, grew because of them. And sometimes, just sometimes, they changed everything.